Okay, guys, can you give me a confirmation if you can hear me clearly? Hi, good evening. I would want someone. Okay, cool. Thank you. Okay, okay, okay. Okay, so today is the last day of the Cipher week that had been running from a couple of days now, and uh, yeah, thank you everyone. So today we are going to be having a workshop on the Mern stack, and we have an awesome person with us live. I leave the introduction, more of the introduction, detailed introduction on him. But thank you so much. I would like to thank everyone to be, you came up every day for these. Uh, okay, cool. So basically, just a sec. Okay, so basically, it was lovely having you and teaching you people from last couple of days. We have been teaching so far. So I hope you had been learning a lot during all of these time, because this was entirely for you people, for you people to learn, for you people to explore during these weeks. No, Jayesh, I am not from LPU. Yeah, for you people to explore, to learn, to understand, to implement things, because we have tried our level best to come up with something new every single day. So today we have Mr. Palash with us. So he's going to be teaching you about the Mern stack. Some couple of things he has planned for you people, and thank you so much, Krishna. Is this exclusive for LP? No, this we have audience over here across the India, but different parts of India. It's not limited to any college. There are a couple of people who are streaming on YouTube. And Ayushi, please check with your microphone once. So Ayushi, you haven't joined the audio. You will find a microphone icon on somewhere on the bottom left corner of your desktop if you are on the desktop, or if you're on the mobile, you will probably find it somewhere corner. You'll have that icon of microphone. Yeah, so just go ahead, click on that. It will solve your problem. Yeah. Now, so we have Palash. He's going to be telling you about what is this buzzword, Mern stack, which is very popular and widely accepted, by different companies. And he's going to be he's going to be showing, he has some interesting things to be showing you over here during the session. So, I welcome Mr. Palash. So if you can just unmute yourself, Palash, I'll just make you host over here. Thank you so much. Have a lovely time and keep learning. Yeah. So Cypherthon shortlisting is going on. We have 400 plus participants. So we have received a lot of responses. So we are trying to shortlist them. You should be receiving an email tonight itself. We'll be also giving you a call tomorrow in the morning to tell who are the people who have been shortlisted, so that if in case you miss on to the email, you have a call as well. Yeah. So, Jay, Cypherthon was the hackathon which was going on recently, and tomorrow we have the actual hackathon will begin. And this entire week that we had was a Cypher week where there was a learning and sharing thing, So I think I have, I'm just making you host, Palash, and over to you.
Hi guys, how is it going for you? I hope you guys can hear me and you will be able to see me in a moment as well. Am I audible to all of you? Are you able to see me? Too low to hear? Please check on the volumes, everyone, before we start off. And I hope you are excited for what we are going to do over here. This is going to be a very informative session. So what we are going to do today is understand how we are going to achieve the development, or how do we target to become a web developer or a full stack developer, and what are the confusions that everyone has. So instead of going into the details of every stack, we need to understand that what is a stack? Am I comfortable with certain part of our development, or am I comfortable with everything? So there are a lot of aspects to this. Now, before I start our session, if there is any kind of voice disturbances, anything that you are not able to hear, do let me know right now. And I'm going to share and discuss with you guys so that you guys are informed, you take an informed decision, and you are very much clear on what to choose and how to choose. So instead of going into the details of the stack, initially what we are going to do is we are going to understand what is this development, how do we achieve it, how do we target this. And the second thing that we will be doing is I'm going to take you through that how we code, how actually coding works. Because 1.5 hours is not a very long time to create a complete full stack, and you will come to know in a moment. Okay, so I guess there is a lot of disturbances, and you guys are having hard time listening to me. All right, give me a second. I'll just set it up. Hello, hello. Can you hear me, guys? Am I audible now properly? Okay, I think this is better. All right. Okay, so what we are going to do today is I'm going to share the screen with you, and we will start off with our presentation, as I would call it. It's more of an information for you guys. Visible to all of you, the screen? All right, I'll just put the chat box on the side so that I can see what you guys are talking about. Okay, cool. So I guess most of you have heard about what web development is, how web development works, what is web development. There is a lot of buzz about people being into the industry and they are web developers. What we need to understand right now is, do I want to become a web developer? So for that, let us get to know you first. Okay. So I'm going to launch a poll, and please answer so that it gives me an idea of what is the thought process, how well are you, how confident are you in your career, and how confident are you in choosing a path. Okay. So I'm going to launch a poll, and I'm going to share this results of the poll with everyone as well. Now, please go ahead and answer this poll that you see on your screen right now. And it says, do I have a clear idea of my career? Like what I want to do? Am I sure that, okay, whatever I have chosen is something that I want to do? Or this is something that I just took it, maybe it will change over the year. Okay, I think we have around 53 participants over here, and I have got almost 33 responses. So I'll give you, for each poll, I will give you 30 seconds max. It has extended to 40 right now, but from the next one, it will be 30 seconds. So be quick. All right, so I'm going to end this poll and let me share the result. Hopefully you guys can see the poll result on your screen. Yeah, okay. So I have been there. A lot of us are very sure about what we want to do, and a lot of us are not very sure. But obviously, over time, with time, everyone will understand. Now, today, what we are going to understand is how to choose something. It might help you in specific to today's session, or it might help you in a longer run, or in something that you are more inclined towards. Okay, so this was the first question I had, and I have got quite a bit of idea of how confident you people are. Let me go ahead and go to the next question. All right, this question is interesting. I just want to see the result for this one. All right. Okay. Are you scared of coding? I don't like the results, but I know that the results were going to be something like this. All right. I will give you 30 seconds, 8-second more. Cool. I have got 43 responses, and 67% of you are scared of coding. And it is pretty evident that coding scares a lot of us. And I was also scared when I started. But the best part about coding is it takes you to a path where you can make informed decisions in your day-to-day life. And it makes you a lot logical in terms of solving any kind of problem. So 33% are scared. Yes, correct. And 67% are not scared. So I think this is a good number. I was talking the other way around. Sorry for that. But yeah, this is a good number. And those who are scared, the thing that I talked about right now is for them. It is very interesting. It's like a game. It's like you are solving something. You are unlocking the level every time. You are learning something new every time. So you will get to know why it is important and how coding works. Nowadays, a lot of automation has come into picture, right? And by automation, I mean a lot of things are being done on their own. एक button के दबाने से you are getting a whole new website getting created. But if you know how it is getting created, it is all code inside. Even machine learning or AI, when we talk about that, it's internally, the machine is also writing code. Exactly, Jayesh. So once you solve problems, it's addictive. It's kind of addictive when you start solving. It's like, okay, let me solve this. Okay, let me introduce this concept. Let me check this. So it's more like a addiction for people who really love coding. Okay. All right. Let's go on to the next question and see what you have to say about this. And this is very important. I like to solve puzzles. Yes? No? Okay. There are, most of you are actually on yes, what I see. Any kind of puzzles, Krishna, maybe problem solving, any kind of puzzles that you see on internet, where you have been asked who is the thief, or any kind of puzzle that you see, like anything that is that requires you thinking in a logical way, in deducing something. Okay, I have got 41 responses, and 90% of you like solving puzzles. So I think you are in the right webinar right now. 4% of, 4 of you who has said, no, I do not like it. You will, or you will have to, if you have chosen web development or any kind of software development field, you will have to like it. Okay, next stuff. I have a couple of more questions for you, and then I will go into what web development is. All right. Are you confused about what to choose in terms of web development technology? Or yes, no? And I think this question may be answered better once we are done with today's session. But yeah, I wanted to get a number of how many of you are still feeling that I know I want to do web development, but how to do it, why to do it, I'm not sure right now. Okay, 30 seconds are up. 39 of you have answered it. Let me end the poll, share the results. And 85% of you are still confused. And 15% are confident. So these guys are going to help me today as well. Those of you who are confused, don't worry. I'm going to make it a little bit better by the end of today. And you might be able to have a clear picture of how things are working in the real world. Because at the end of the day, whatever you are going to learn, you're going to implement, and that implementation is going to solve some problems, right? And that is what matters at the end of the day. So one last question that I have for you is this one. Those of you who said, no, you are scared of coding. What about this? Do you like designing more than coding? All right. All right. I have 31 responses from 53 attendees. It's 36 now. 10 seconds more, and then I'll end it. Okay. I have 37. Cool. So let me share it. So this is kind of a mixed response, but more people are inclined towards designing. And 38 people said they like coding more, or I am assuming that they like coding more. I will also tell you how these two things are related. Because we are more concerned on web development today, I am going to take you through each and every aspect of web development. All right. So are we good to start? I've got an idea. You guys are excited about coding. You guys are excited about designing, but you're still confused from the questions that I have seen. You're still confused what to choose, and you like to solve puzzles. So I feel you guys are already on the right track. Maybe you're confused with the initial question. When I saw, there was a lot of people who said they're a little confused still. But I think after having all these answers, I feel you guys are on the right track. So let us begin. So I am Palash. Before I can start anything or go deep into web development, let me introduce myself. All right, so I have been a software developer, worked with company where I was a software developer and used to code on big data, full stack, different technologies. Then I moved out from that and started interacting with students. And doing that, I have been also creating and developing a lot of other products. And this gave me an idea of how we can connect students with the real world, right? At the end of the day, when I was in college, I had faced this problem that what am I going to do when I finish my fourth year? Or will I be skillful enough to get a job? The job is the biggest thing that is on a student's mind. So what I do is I share my experience with people, and I also do a lot of development work. And this way it helps me to keep sharing the knowledge that I gain with the students, and it helps students to understand how the industry works. Apart from that, I love to explore places, like to travel, like to listen to good music. Everyone loves that, I guess. Sports, I like sports. If I get a chance to play anytime, I do take it up. And obviously, I watch a lot of movie series, web series, and these are very generic likings. I guess most of you connect with me on this. So this is all about myself. We will go inside and see what web development is. Okay, so for the very first question, I hope you guys can see the screen and there is no disturbance on noise, or there is no noise from my end. A lot of you said that you like designing. A lot of you said you like coding. How does it work out there? Should I be a designer? Should I be a developer? How should I compare this in the first place? Now, in today's world, everything that you see is online. Most of the things, I won't say everything, but most of the things is online. You would hear every third word or fourth word people are saying that I'm going to make an online payment, or please check it online. People use these terms a lot nowadays, right? So you can imagine how much of importance it is in the jobs field in today's world. If you do not have an online presence, your business is not going to grow, because the reach for online is way too much. You can actually reach everyone in the world using online, right? So online presence is very important. Once you have decided for the online presence, they look out for people who can develop or who can make their presence on online. And there is where we come into picture. People like us, web developers, web designers. So a lot of you guys have already said front end and back end, client side and server side. Correct. They are more on a technical terms, but on a very high level. Arvind, whatever Arvind is saying, it says designer means UI mostly, developer means whole stuff that's going to make it nice. Okay. Okay, I have one other question. I will take a look at the chat once I have done with the slides, so that you guys can put in your queries and I can answer that. With the flow, I'm not going to go and answer each one of you on the chat, but you will not be missed. I will just go through the chat at the end of it and we will take a look at the questions. So what is a designer? Designer is something who is more of a person or a creative person in terms of the looks, aesthetics, cosmetic side of a page. So whatever user is going to see, that is what designer is responsible for in making. And do not take it as that you have to be very good artistically. You have to be good, but there is a big study behind it. Like, why is a button rounded? Why are latest design more on a curvy sense rather than having a square sense, right? You guys have you guys observed that nowadays website and logos and everything is very curvy, right? It is not square in its look. Why is it so? So there is a whole research that goes on. There is a whole research why you should be placing a button in a certain position on the screen, or why you should be using this color if you are dealing with a, let's say, educational business, or why is it should be this color if you're dealing with a healthcare business. So depending on business, depending on type of thing that you're developing, the user that is going to come to your website, it should be appealing to them. The kind of user, what is the cognitive behavior of a user when the user comes on your website, right? For you also, you might have gone to a website and you said, no, this is not right. I do not like this website. Maybe I'll check out somewhere else. And maybe the other website you like it much more, though they have the same content, but you like the second one more rather than the first one, right? If I have to ask you that if you like Netflix more, or if you like Amazon Prime more, or if you like YouTube more, everyone will have their own opinions. And that is all because how the design aspects has come into picture, and each one have their own choices. Yes, and that's why it is called UI and UX. So web designer deals mostly with UI and UX. So UI is user interface and UX is user experience. So both of them are interrelated. When you talk about interface, that interface is giving the experience to the user, right? So there is a whole study behind it. Now, what is a web developer then? A web developer is a person who is going to create all this stuff. A web designer will go ahead, give him or her a design, and that web developer is very well equipped with the codings, with coding skill, which can help that designer to achieve that look or feel of the web page. And when developer uses the technology, that developer uses is a separate aspect. The designer has given a particular design, and the developer is started implementing it using certain technologies, right? And that is when the technology come into picture. That is another aspect of your whole full stack development and how it works. I'm going to go into details of each one of them, but I guess I have made it clear in a way what is a web designer and what is a web developer, right? Any questions till now? So I see, is there any way to learn UX? Yes, Krishna, there are a lot of ways to learn UX. They have their own set of syllabus, how to achieve. Now, when you talk about designer, it's not just related to web. There are a lot of designers, product designers, or furniture designing that are very popular, and there are a lot of good colleges out there who are just specifically for designers. Okay, what is the difference between UI and UX? So UI is the interface. Interface, what you see, you can see the presentation on your screen. That is an interface. The screen where you're seeing the browser is an interface, right? And whatever you see inside the browser is an interface. UX, when I say, okay, I like the color combination, what I see on my screen. Okay, I like this website. That is an experience. So when I talk about UI and UX, everything comes into consideration. Why we should not be using a lot of text, why we should be using only small text, or why we should be using little bit of pictures and little bit of text. Everything comes into your UX. When you implement it, that is the UI part. Am I clear? Right? Makes sense? Okay. All right. So when I talk about web developer, do not think that it means everything. The web developer means only web developer is associated with the front end aspect of it, and we will talk about front end. I would rather say a client or a design team that turns it into a website. So when I talk about a web developer, when you say I want to be a web developer, you would ideally mean that I want to work on the client side. I just want to work on whatever user sees, right? Now, different types of developers specializes in different areas. So when I talk about different areas and different specializations, I mean the technology. What kind of technology you are using, what kind of stack you are using. Okay. So when I talk about web developer, the designer, how it works in a company, I'll tell you. There's a designer team, they create a design, they create a wireframe, and then they pass it on to the development team. What development team does is they take up the wireframe and just match it and use their coding skills to just replicate it. Now keep this in mind, because I'm going to tell you how to be a better web developer in terms of whenever you're starting on uh, learning to create websites. Okay. So a web developer is mostly responsible on cloning something, or if the web developer is creative enough or is a very talented and a creative person, then he or she might do his or her own design, and then code it on their own. And that is a very good skill to have if you are very creative, so you can have a imagination of how this is going to look, and then you're going to implement it as well. So there are two skills coming into picture together. So till now we have talked about two different skills. I'll move on and talk about what type of web developer you want to be. Okay. Front end, I think someone mentioned previously as well. You can be a front-end developer, you can be a back-end developer, or you can be a full stack. All right. So these are the three words that comprises of everything and what you are going to do. So let's go to front-end developer first. Before I move on, how many of you actually feel that they are very creative? Just a raise of hand. Yeah, Krishna, I'll come to that. Just a raise of hands. How many of you feel that they are very good in creative aspect rather than having to do anything with coding? So that I can see. I see 3 hands. Okay. All right, cool. So being a web developer is a very important aspect in today's world. And I'll tell you why. A web developer or a front-end web developer is responsible for developing everything that you receive from a design team. And it comprises of 3 main technologies. So when you're starting your journey as a developer, and if you want to be a web developer, front-end web developer, you need to start off with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Now, what HTML, CSS, and JavaScript does? HTML is the most important aspect of any client-side website that you see. Anything that you visit on the internet is made out of HTML. HTML is the very first thing which actually gives it a structure. So for example, if you take this presentation that you see, how this card is placed, how the logo is placed, how small logos are placed, why is it tilted, that positioning is provided to us by HTML. When it comes to CSS, CSS is more of a cosmetic part of it. Like, how can I make it colorful? How can I make a background to it? How can I give a background to this one? Or how can I shift it to right side, left side? How can I add animations to it? So HTML and CSS works together. And when it works together, you can create beautiful looking websites. But when you create this, these are very static websites, as we call it. These are called static websites when you do not have any kind of interaction. So what will user do? When you have created, you have some design and you have implemented it using the technologies of HTML and CSS, what you do is you have given the user a static website. But if a user wants to interact with your website, you haven't given anything using HTML and CSS. For that, you would need JavaScript. Now, JavaScript is something that comes as a part of all developers who is a front-end developer or who wants to become a front-end developer. If you do not know JavaScript, do not think of creating or going up and taking up any kind of framework that you have heard on internet and start implementing it, because most of the frameworks that you see out there are on top of JavaScript. Because JavaScript is the language of internet which gives life. It is a game changer. When it came initially, they were actually looking for a way to interact with people on the internet. They initially started working with Java for the front end, but it was too heavy for them. And that's why they chose JavaScript. They started working on JavaScript. And over the years, JavaScript has gained so much popularity. And I will show you that in a moment as well. Yeah. So it's a script. Yes, correct, Krishna. It's a script. And what script does is it interprets immediately. What JavaScript is why is it so famous and why is it so popular? Because it is an interpreter, unlike Java. What Java does is it takes up the whole code, it compiles it first, and then it executes it or runs it. I don't know if you guys have worked with Java or not, but that is how Java works. How JavaScript works, it works line by line. So there is this line of code, it interprets it, executes it, moves on to the next. Then it moves on to the next. And that is how it works. It doesn't wait for the whole code to compile and then again run it. It doesn't work like that. And that's why it is fast. And today, the speed of a website is something that is important. So to get the interactivity, to understand how JavaScript works, you would have to get your hands dirty with JavaScript. until and unless you do not know how JavaScript works, you cannot pick up any kind of language that is there for front-end development. I see a lot of people, a lot of you are saying Redux or client side and everything. You need to know about these three languages if you want to create a website of your own, or just the client side, even if not the full website, the client side. I hope you're clear on front-end aspect and the importance of JavaScript and HTML and CSS. And if you do not know HTML and CSS, there is no point of having JavaScript, right? So I would say JavaScript is going to be the bread and butter of the complete internet right now. It is the bread and butter of complete internet. Without JavaScript, you won't be able to see, you won't be able to play any games, you won't be able to click any button and see what is happening. You can create a button with HTML and CSS, but what happens after clicking a button, you won't be able to do anything if you do not have JavaScript. So that is the importance of JavaScript. I will move on to the next part. What is a backend developer? Now, I'm not very sure that what year you guys are in, but if you have ever seen a job description out there, you would have seen that when it comes to front-end developer, they state it quite openly that we are looking for a front-end developer, or we are looking for a person who can create website for the clients or the client-side development. When we talk about backend, you will see very specific names of technologies and they put it out as a job description. So you will see we are looking for PHP developers. We are looking for Node developer, or we are looking for Ruby developers. Okay. So when companies are looking for any kind of developers, they specify it that, okay, I need a backend developer. I need this technology developer specific to this. So as I said, the stacks are built. There are different kind of stacks, and it's confusing. It's very confusing that what should I choose? This is a LAMP stack, as Krishna is saying, that LAMP stack is something that works for me. But maybe my requirement, or maybe my product that I'm going to create doesn't need LAMP stack. It can be worked with MERN stack, or it can be worked with mean stack, right? LAMP stack is getting a little old nowadays, Krishna, to be very honest. People are more inclined towards MERN, mean, or any JavaScript stack. And I'll tell you what that is. So can you tell me what LAMP stack is, by the way, the full LAMP stack? So it's basically Laravel, Angular, Mongo, and PHP. Am I correct, Krishna? Yeah. So you will see a lot of different stacks in today's world. So what does a backend developer do? Backend developer is the brain of the website. Backend developer does all the kind of crazy solving of a problem. Let's say I want to create a ticketing system. So you can create a very good website. You can have a lot of interactivity on your website. But once the user press that button, and once that data that has been collected from the front end, it moves to the back end, right? And now how are you going to handle that? How are you going to handle that data, the functionality part? Correct. How am I going to create a system where it does not fail? Let's say I have thousands of users. Now thousands of users are clicking the same button all at the same time, because it is a ticketing system. You never know who is clicking when, and you cannot have a system which can just sit there and wait for one click to finish and then the other person can click. If you create a system like that, it is not going to be popular. People are going to say, no, I don't want to use this system. So how do I handle that kind of a load? How do I create an algorithm or a problem or solve this problem? This is where backend developers come into picture. They take in the data, they process it in a way so that you don't have to wait, or the speed of my website is not hampered. It gives a good experience. So you see how my user experience is also connected to the backend developer. Now, when I talk about how this solving works, this is where the problem solving comes into picture. This is where the puzzles come into picture, right? If you are able to solve a problem, you will be able to implement it. So backend development is, when I talk about backend development, it just doesn't mean knowing the stack. I know PHP, I can be a backend developer. It doesn't work like that. You have to be aware of the fact that you need to be able to solve problems. People will come to you, they will say that, okay, the website is having this kind of a problem. Let's say it's a ticketing website, and a person cannot book 2 tickets at the same time. They are having problem. How will you solve it? You will say, okay, I'm going to use a queue data structure, or I'm going to use some data structure, which you may or may not know about at the moment. But before starting any kind of development, you need to be very sure of data structures. Any company that comes to your college, or any, even for the experienced people, if you go and take an interviews, what happens is they look for a person who can solve a problem using the data structures, right? So data, whenever you are going to get a hands-on on data structure, please be sure that you do it properly, because using these data structures, a lot of small elements of any website is solved. It is, you cannot create a website in one day. It doesn't work like that. So do not think, if you go ahead and see a YouTube tutorial where a person is creating a website in 1.5 hours, that person would have invested not less than a month or so to create that. Not that person would have encountered thousands of errors before coming to that well-maintained and one-go website that you see on YouTube. So do not get bogged down, or do not get influenced with the YouTube tutorials. They are really good. I won't say I myself see them a lot of times to learn a lot of stuff, but until unless you get your hands dirty with that kind of code or with that kind of language, you will not be able to learn what it is actually mean to solve a problem. And that is when the backend developer comes into picture. So as you can see on the screen, there are code and programs which powers the website server, databases, and any application that it contains, right? So the most important thing as a backend developer is the ability to create a clean, efficient code that does what you want it in a quickest way possible. I hope you are getting the point, right? Understanding. Can anyone tell me the logos that you see? Can you guys identify the logos on the screen? Do you identify this? Okay, yeah, PHP because it is written, Node because it is written, Python, yes. What is on the top? Can anyone tell me about this red one? No, never seen. It's Ruby, Ruby, backend. Okay, that is Ruby. Ruby का design है ये, logo है, sorry. ठीक है? No, Nirbhay, it is not Ruby on Rails. I will tell you what it means. It is just Ruby. Rails is a framework. Okay. All right. Backend का definition clear है आप लोग को? Do you understand what a backend guy does? Clear? Are you guys finding it helpful? Is it making you feel like, okay, now I make sense? Right? Cool. All right. So we will go ahead and notch it up a bit and talk about something called full stack developer. Now, this is something that you will see a lot in internet. A lot of companies are saying that we have full stack course, we want full stack developers. As the name suggests, and you might have guessed it by now, that full stack developers are the people who know everything from the front end to the back end, right? So it means the complete flow of the website is known to that particular person who is a full stack developer. So let's weigh everything now. You just know designing and front end. You just know backend. You know backend and front end. Nowadays, companies are looking more and more into a person who can be a full stack developer so that they can fill in the shoes for the both end. So if there is a requirement in the front end, the person can sit and code for the front end part. If there is a requirement in the back end, they can go and sit for the back end part. But that doesn't mean that you should be running towards full stack development. If you feel comfortable with backend, stick to backend. Uh, go ahead and create a lot of backend technologies. You create a lot of products where the front end can be done by someone else, because there are great backend developers. Without the backend developers, nothing works. If you are more inclined towards design and front end, go work with the HTML, CSS, JavaScript, as I said, must work with a lot of frameworks. And by frameworks, I mean anything that has been written on top of a language. So I said that it is not Ruby on Rails, it is just Ruby. Ruby is kind of a language on which Rails is written. It's a framework. There is a difference over here. So you guys need to understand this from the very beginning. You just can't go ahead and say, okay, I'm going to learn Mern stack, or I'm going to learn mean stack, lamp stack. Do not do that, because all these stacks are on top of a base or a fundamental language, right? So when we talk about stack, these are frameworks which are written on top of JavaScript. Uh, have you heard about Angular? Have you heard about React? Have you guys heard about those things? Right? Those are frameworks. Those those things are written on top of JavaScript. So you might go ahead, look at tutorials for React or tutorials for Angular, but if you do not know JavaScript, you might understand it on a very high level. By high level, I mean on a very surface level. JavaScript is the under the hood functionality of any kind of framework that you see, which has JS in it. I'm not saying all of them, JS in them. Okay. So yes, correct. Yeah, Rayman, I will come to your question, the difference between full stack, Mern stack, and mean stack. But I'm emphasizing it all this while that please learn JS before getting your hands dirty with the framework. So what JS will do is, I'll give you an example how to do this. Now, I said when you uh, when you learn about data structures, what you need to do is you need to implement it, you need to practice it, you need to solve using data structures. Now let's say you want to learn JavaScript as well, or you want to learn Python as well, whatever language you want to learn. Pick up that language and solve your data structures using that language. Okay, because whenever you sit for company interviews, they give you a choice to say which language do you want to write your or you want to solve this question in. And if you have a command on a language and the data structures, that gives you an upper hand. Let's say you go and say, I have an upper hand on Python and I can implement it in Python. So you go ahead and say that, okay, I am going to solve it in Python, or I'm going to solve it in JavaScript. So this way, there is two things that is getting solved for you. One, that they will get to know that you are able to solve a problem. Problem solving skills are good. You are able to implement data structures using that. Plus, you are aware of the language. You are very much aware of how this language works. So if that company requires a developer who is good at JavaScript, you have an upper hand. You have already gained brownie points without even knowing that you have gained it, right? So there are a lot of subconscious things that interview gets uh, gets to see in a particular candidate when a particular candidate performs in certain way, right? So very important, use your data structures, have your problem solving skills, and select a language. Okay. All right, so it's time for some questions, and I see a lot of questions over here. So first question is from Raymond that what is the difference between full stack, burn stack, and mean stack? So it is all the same. Full stack, by the word stack, stack means on top of each other, right? So when you talk about stack, it is the complete stack. Let me see if I have the annotations over here. I can put out annotations. Okay, the annotations are off. No worries. Okay. So MERN stack is specific to JavaScript. Mean stack is also specific to JavaScript. Now, when I talk about MERN, MERN is basically MongoDB. M stands for MongoDB. E stands for Express. R stands for React, and N stands for Node. Okay. Similarly, in mean stack, the rest of the things remains the same. A stands for Angular. Okay. Now, for the front end, in the MERN and mean stack, for the front end part, we use the framework of React and Angular, and that is just related to the front end part. It does not go in the back end part. And in the back end part, we have Express, Node, and MongoDB. Now, inside this also, let me bifurcate it. Express is a framework. You can have Express, you cannot have Express. Node is the environment where you can create it. With introduction of Node, what has happened is people have started writing full stack in one single language, that is JS. 2008 में Node आया था. Node के पहले क्या होता था कि backend आप PHP पे लिख रहे हो, .NET पे लिख रहे हो, और front end you are writing it in HTML and CSS and JavaScript. So you were learning two different languages, you were dealing two different languages, problem in two different languages. अब क्या हुआ है JS के आने के बाद, you learn only one language and you can create everything in one language, one single language, you can create everything. With that, you could obviously imagine कि हाँ, अगर मेरे को एक लैंग्वेज पे कमांड आ रहा है और उसी पे पूरा स्टैक लिखना है, तो it will be much more easier. So this is a very modern web development techniques. These are very modern web development tools. But that doesn't mean that you can go ahead and start working with framework. You will not understand if you do not understand JavaScript, right? So all these stacks, mean stack or MERN stack, is a stack written on JavaScript. पहले बैकएंड पे जावास्क्रिप्ट नहीं लिख सकते थे, इसलिए हम रूबी यूज करते थे. वी यूज टू यूज PHP, we used to use .NET. Okay, but now there's a lot of popularity for JavaScript and Python. Okay, yes, Krishna, it's Express is a middleware. Express is something that is written on top of Node. तो Node में let's say कि मेरे को एक functionality लिखनी है कि if I click on this button, it takes me to this page. That is a route. Okay, we call it a route. Now that route can be written in your own way in Node using the JS. But with Express coming into picture, what happens is ये सारे routes आपके create कर देते हैं. So that is just a basic difference. So everything is getting on top, and that's why it is called a stack. I hope it makes sense. Right? Okay. Krishna has a question. MERN and mean got differences as Facebook and Google dev, I guess. I guess I answered the question, the difference between MERN and mean. By the way, do you guys know who created React? Anyone who knows created React? Yes, correct. And who created Angular? Google. Yeah. So React initially was written by the developers in the Facebook itself for their own use. But inside their team, they started seeing that this is this has a very high scope in the field of development, and then they released it to the complete world to use it as an open source, right? So these are the modern ways, modern frameworks that are coming into picture. But likha kis pe gaya? Everything has been written on JavaScript, right? Are you guys clear on web developer, front-end developer, back-end developer, and full stack developer? Does everything make sense right now? Okay, so full stack developer will require a lot of knowledge for front end and back end. So if you're trying to achieve something, start step by step. So you can start by learning backend, or let's start learning by databases. What are databases? How are databases created? Then use that database knowledge and start learning about backend and how do you connect it. I'll talk about that as well, Shrishti. Okay, this brings me to how to become a web developer. You'll have to start deciding what sort of developer you want. You have to clear your confusions. Now, I think I have given you a brief idea of how everything works. Maybe it helps you. Maybe you have to research more, depends on individual. But you have to decide on what you like. Are you able to do it? Pick up anything. Let's say if you pick up PHP, start working with PHP. But if you kind of feel, you get a feeling that, okay, I don't think I will be able to do much in PHP, pick up JavaScript. I would suggest at the moment you pick up JavaScript. And I have some data to back it up as well. Okay. So choose whatever you want to learn, implement it, and try to see what is the next best thing, or what is the thing that might be required in the market. It does not have to be something that you will always have to learn in that way. Maybe have an idea about it, start implementing it, you might start liking it. But it's a must that you need to have information about JavaScript. Create a learning plan. That is a very basic thing. Everyone does that. So I have put it over here, but it is something that you should always have, whatever you're trying to do. And have interaction. Try to connect with people who are already in this field. Work with instructors, have your mentors, work with developers you will get to know, or a friend who is already good at coding or who develops all this stuff. This is how you're going to learn a lot. Because when you see something, or when you're going to read from the resources, very good stuff, but you need to practice everything. You need to have a hands-on information on how these things work, right? So that's why I would suggest that interact with these kind of people. I hope I have made things clear right now. And we have talked about designers initially as well. But to reiterate, a web designer is the person or a group of people who are responsible for the creation of the website. They might decide that it needs to be in a certain color with certain content and page. They would be giving you some code. They would be interacting with you initially that, okay, I need this color and that. But at the end of the day, the coder is going to implement it the way, using a stack or using a framework or something like that. All right. So this brings me to the very important part of this session. And I'm going to show you some data from Stack Overflow's 2020 survey. How many of you know about Stack Overflow? How many of you know about Stack Overflow? Okay, if you do not know, do not worry. Stack Overflow is a kind of a community where most of the developers come, they ask their questions if they're facing some kind of a problem, and it is a very big community. Okay, it is a very big dev community where people, so in most of the companies, people are looking out for solutions. People are looking out for, if they have put a code, they are not able to solve it, they put it out in Stack Overflow and they get to see how it works. Or a lot of people from different area comes in and say, okay, you might have done this wrong, or you can do it in such a way. So it's like a community. Now, what they have done is, it's a very big community. You will get to know if you do not. They have a lot of people. They take surveys every year. This is the very latest survey. And I wanted to show you the most popular technologies. All right. Now I'll scroll down. Can you see the graphs? Can you guys see the graph? Which is the language that you see on top? Yeah, correct. JS. Then you see HTML and CSS, right? And then you see SQL, and then you see Python, Java. So now with the advent of JavaScript being a full can be used as a front end as and a back end, there were almost 60,000 responses in this, and based on that 60,000 responses, this is for the technologies. uh, Whoever has asked this question, is it for web development? These are the technologies. You do not always use all the languages together. Maybe you use JavaScript to create a certain small aspect in a company, right? So as you can see, JavaScript is 67.7% out of the 60,000 respondents that you see, and HTML and CSS. So this rightly points that web development is very popular, correct? SQL is a language which is used for your database, okay? It is used for databases, and this is a language for database. So I'll show you that in a moment. And then comes Python. Python is mostly used in backend nowadays. It's more of a backend technology. So top three, as you can see, is agar aap ye sari charo language seekh jaoge, so you are a full stack developer. Obviously, there are parts which are connecting the front end and back end and how it works. There are a lot of things like that. But here, what you see is the numbers, how popular things are. Java is still popular, and I would suggest you learn it because a lot of companies who have been established since 90s or are there in the market from a very long time, they look for Java developers, and Java is a very strong language. All the big data that you see, or you might have heard about big data, those things are running on Java, okay? And that's why it is popular. No, that is not correct. Acer, whoever that is, it is based on the performance. Let's say I am trying to solve a problem. Let me give you an example. Let's take example of Amazon. Now, Amazon works on a stack, or let's take an example of Netflix, very popular. How Netflix works is it uses React as the front end. Okay. Now, Java, it's written on JavaScript. Why is it popular? Because of its way of handling the data and the UI elements. When I talk about UI elements, that how much time does it take to load the view, and then how much time it takes to update the data on that view. So when we are watching something on Netflix, what happens is when we click on that play button, it goes to the backend, gets the request done. So in the meanwhile, what React does is it loads it on the page. Now, if I would have done the same thing just using JavaScript, but with more and more code, and there would have been a lot of time to load that code on the browser. But these frameworks does it in a smaller time, and that's how you start comparing. Okay, React is able to do this. Will Angular be able to do this? Yes, they would be able to do this. But then again, it's the priority. Angular के साथ क्या होता है? It can be used. It's called a two-way data binding. I don't want to go in a lot of details so that you guys get confused. तो two-way data binding होता है. उसमें data जाता भी है और आता भी है. React में क्या होता है? सिर्फ data आता है. So if I think in terms of Netflix, I just need data. I do not want to send data, right? Do you agree that I do not want to send data? I just receive data and just watch it on my screen, correct? So that's why I will choose React over Angular at the moment. And there are a lot of parameters that these guys have. And what they do is they compare it in such a manner. Okay. All right. Okay. I'll show you the professional developers. The number has increased. There are 50,000 professional developers, and the number for JavaScript has increased, right? So I think you're getting an idea. Okay, we have certain more questions over here. Difference between Ruby and Django.
Ruby is becoming a little old. Django is more on a Python-based Rayman. When Ruby came into picture, it was very popular, but it hasn't. A lot of company has adapted Ruby as a backend framework. But with the JavaScript coming into picture, with merge stack and mean stack coming into picture, Ruby is taking a little bit of a backseat. As you can see, 7.5%. Okay. Yeah, Python-based backend. AngularJS has stopped giving updates. So what is the scope? AngularJS and Angular are two different things. Have you ever observed, Nirbhay, that there is an AngularJS and then there is Angular? Now these two different things. AngularJS have stopped giving updates, correct? Because they are working on Angular as a complete stack. They are trying to create something on key. You use Angular and you can have the two-way data binding. Okay. So talking about the scopes, it all depends. There might be something that is coming up better than React, or there is something coming up better than JavaScript. Maybe, I don't know. But JavaScript is something that you should always know to learn any kind of stack, as I said. All right, very interesting part that everyone wants to know, top paying technologies, right? So I will start with global because that concerns us more. And you're going to see a lot of names that you might have never heard. Now, why Perl is so high paying? Because there are very less developers for this, right? As and when the developers are reducing, people are trying to pay them more because they don't find much of that developer, because that is not so popular at the moment. You would see JavaScript might come a little low in this. See, everyone knows JavaScript, everyone knows CSS, everyone knows Java. Java is a very big community, global, and they have 33,000 people who have responded to this. So don't get bogged down that, oh, I do not know about Perl, I do not know what Scala is. But be mindful of what you like. As I said initially, you should not be having this preconceived notion that, okay, I will go for whatever is looking good in the market. Whatever is feeling good for you, you solve that and you will have that in the market. You can go and take a look and you will definitely have that in the market. But learning and problem solving is the most important aspect. So how much of learning and problem solving? Yes, Bash is always going to be there because Linux-based system definitely has so much power. So it is never going out of market. Okay. So as you see over here, 56,000 people responded saying, I solve problems every month. Or 36 said, 36% said once a year. 23% said once every few years. I think they are on the verge of losing their job. And once a decade, they have already lost it. Just a joke. Don't take it seriously. But yeah, it's very important that most of the developers solve their problem every month, because without problem solving, you will not be able to solve anything that comes your way while you're working or while you're learning something. How much professional developers look at? How much professional developers look at? They have every month 34% because they are already working, and once a year because they try to enhance this. Okay. So I guess I have given you an idea of how the development works, right? Does it make sense? Now what we are going to do is I'm going to give you a brief HTML, CSS demo on how should I work with it. I'm not going to go into the details of React and everything because you need to know JavaScript for that. And there are a lot of people who do not know about the basics of HTML and CSS as well. So to give you a starting point, and how you should be achieving something, I will take you through a very small demo of how to create a page or how to visualize a page and then implement it. Okay, does that sound good? Does that sound good? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share another screen with you, and it's a coding screen which you guys will see. Okay. All right. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to make you visualize a view of, let's say, a profile. Are you guys able to see the screen? Krishna, what I'll do is Ajax and Express implementation will not be possible in today's timeline, but I will share my GitHub repo. You guys can take a look at my GitHub repo, and there are a lot of codes that you can take a look and you can understand the code from there itself. Okay. All right, cool. So what I want to do is I want to create just a dummy page. Let's say I want to create a HTML page with some CSS which can help me to understand or to portray myself. Let's say I want to say a profile page of myself. What I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly create a page over here, index.html, and okay, I'll say HTML5. Now, when you are learning initially, please do not do this. Do not go with the suggestions, because what it does is it will definitely hamper your writing skills, because a lot of interviews, what they do is they have whiteboard interviews, right? Whiteboard interviews are the interviews where you are supposed to write the code on the whiteboard. Now, if you start using this initially without even knowing what this is, the problem will be you will not be able to perform good in the whiteboard interviews. Whiteboard interviews is something where you have to write your code with a pen. Okay, so there won't be any suggestions coming up. So just for the sake and for the time that we have right now, we are using the boilerplate, as Krishna said, boilerplate. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste a script. Now what this is, I'm going to use a font. As you can see, this is a website and it has .js in it. So basically this is a JS file that is going to come and load on my HTML. Okay, I will call this, no, okay, I'll call this my profile. All right, now I have visualized something in my head. I have something that I have already thought about. So what I'll do is, whenever you are creating anything, start with small sections or a small part. So I'm just going to have one division initially, as you can see. And inside this division, let's say I have a profile picture. So I know that profile picture or anything that is related to picture will come in the image part, right? And I will put a source. In a moment, I'll put a source. And what the source does is basically tells that, that okay, this is where I'm going to read my images from. Okay, and if it does not load, you just create a name which actually tells if someone is going to create this or someone is going to have this. What they will do is they will understand that, okay, there was a profile picture that was supposed to load. Now I will put a class to it. What class does is it helps me to target it individually. It will help me target it. Agar I have to do some design on this or something. So I'll say, okay, box image. I'll say it's a box image class, and I will use it in my CSS file. Let's say I have a heading. This is going to be my name. Okay, I want it big. Headings are important. So this is going to be big. I'll use H1. I'll call myself Tony Stark. I guess you guys have heard about Tony Stark. Most of you would have. All right, and below that, maybe I will define what I am. So I'll say I am a web developer. So I'll just say web developer. So it kind of gives me a feel of name and then my title. And let's say I have a small text about me. I'll put lorem ipsum text. So what this lorem ipsum text is, basically some random text. I have just used some extension. Okay. All right. So this looks very initial look for my website. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start a server, which is going to show me what this website looks like. Okay, give me a second. I'll just put it on the screen and I'll share the whole screen with you guys. Can you guys see both the screens? Can you guys see both the screens over here on the left and on the right? Okay. All right, cool. Now what we will do is we have got this structure. So when I talked about HTML, I said this provides us a structure. I know how to position it. I know what are these things. And this is what is going to help me. This is the basic idea that I have. Now what I'll do is I will go on and create some style. It looks very bleak right now. So I'm going to create a style. And for that, I would need style.css. So now I will throw in a little bit of CSS. What CSS does is it will help me give the look and feel to this. Now you have seen in the HTML part, there is this body, right? And inside this, whatever we write is what is going to get displayed on the screen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to target this. So whenever we are targeting any kind of elements from HTML, we use this name. Okay, I'll show you the usage of class. We have used some class also. So what I'm doing right now is I'm going to put a margin. Margins are nothing but something like a fencing around a house. So in this scenario, fencing around the whole page. And I'm saying, okay, I do not want anything of this. I will put a background. Now what background does is, so these are the properties that I'm writing. Cool. Now I have an image. Let's say I have a background, and in that background, I will have some picture. So I am using those terminologies. Now, if I am not aware of these things, I will not be able to implement what I am thinking, right? So that's why what this background does is it takes up a URL. You can, if you are trying to input an image, and I'm going to say, okay, there will be an images folder, and from there, pick up some image. Let's say the name of the image is this. So what we need to do is we need to create a folder from where this is going to get picked up. So I have named it images. I said that I'm going to pick it up from images. And inside this, I have a couple of images that I will use over here so that I can put it in my website. And I'm going to paste it. All right. So there are two images that has been posted, and you will see these images in a moment. So have I saved it in my CSS? Okay. So I said B2, and if I save it, nothing is going to happen right now because I haven't linked my style. So when you want anything to be implemented on your index.html, you need to link it. Now this is a link tag. What it does is it links. And where am I writing it? Inside the head. Anything that I write inside the head is kind of an information about the website, that what is the relationship, what kind of data do I hold. I call this style sheet, right? Style sheet. And then I give the reference. So hyperlink reference. From where are you going to pick it up? I'm going to say read the style.css from here. And let's see if it works. And on the left hand side, it did move a bit. Something happened. Everything got stuck to the left hand side. So the CSS got implied. What I will do is I'll just go ahead and put images for the profile. And let's see if it implements it. And I think it does. Maybe it's a huge image. Has it loaded? I think it will load. It's a huge image, I guess. So there is an image that got loaded. Okay, yeah. Look at the size of Tony Stark. It's huge, right? It is something that we don't want. It's a very big picture. It is taking up almost everything, and everything is skewed on the left-hand side. So this calls, and also, let's go to style. Yeah, so I was working on this style. So we need to work a lot on the style, because if I close this now, you will see the background coming as well. Okay, there must be some background somewhere, and it is hidden behind this particular image. Okay, everything looks very messy. What I'll do is I'll just quickly say no repeat. What this does is it does not repeat my background image, and I will say background cover or background size that I want. Whatever my background image is, the size of it should be a cover. So it's like a cover photo on the screen. Okay, so there is some movements happening, but I can't see the image as of now for the background. And that's because my Tony Stark has taken up everything on my screen. So for this, I will go ahead and say, I will call this a class of box, because this is one section that I'm implementing. And this box, let me just check if I have the BG2. Okay, what is the name that I have given? B2. There is one error. Yes. So I solved that error, and I have some image, background image over here. Yes, correct. Now we have some background image, and it looks a little weird right now. We are going to solve this. And this is how developers work. They keep on checking how it looks like and what is happening on my page. I'll close this. I have used the box image. Now, when I'm targeting any class, I use dot star and I call it box. Because I'm targeting my box, which is this part, this div, I'm targeting this. Okay. So I have said, okay, class box. So whenever you're targeting a class, you in a CSS, you target it with a dot star. Dot and box. Let's just set a width to it. I'm setting a width of 450 pixels. So this will compress everything into one space, and I will say background, and I can set some color to the background as well. And I can set it in multiple ways. One way was telling that there is a picture involved. Another way is telling the RGBA. So red, I'll say 92, let's say. Green, and for blue part, I'll say 91. And this I will say 0.4. So what this does is, these are the RGB values. It can be a hex value or it can be numbers. And the fourth one is the opacity of this. By opacity, I mean how much dark, how much light it want to look like. I want it to look like, okay? I'll just quickly show you that how it works. So I'll align this in center like this. Then what margin auto will do is it will align it to left and right. It will take up whatever space it is, and it will align the element in the center of the screen. I'll say margin top. So ऊपर से कितना space नीचे लाना है. So when I say top, the space between the top of it to the element. So I'll say 5%. And color of this is going to be, I'll use another RGBA values. And this time I'll make a little lighter color. So 241, let's say 235 and 235. And I'll make this time 0.76. So this is the opacity of it. So if I save this, I see something happening. okay, but my image is still giving me a lot of issues. But I see that background is set, something has come up. It looks like a profile. हेडिंग बीच में आ गया बिकॉज हमने बॉक्स को टारगेट किया था, तो जो भी इसके अंदर की चीजें हैज बीन टारगेटेड, इट हैज बीन अलाइन टू सेंटर. मार्जिन ऑटो मींस लेफ्ट और राइट का जो स्पेस था उन्होंने ऑटोमेटिकली ऑक्यूपाई करके सेंटर में कर दिया. सो द नेक्स्ट प्रॉब्लम दैट आई हैव इज अ काइंड ऑफ द इमेज प्रॉब्लम. ओके, टोनी स्टार्क का इमेज हटाओ. Have been requested to do that, so I'll just name it wrongly so that it is unable to pick it. And this is how it looks like without the image. Okay, so I have some image और मैंने बोला इस बॉक्स का एक डिजाइन दे दिया, मैंने पूरी बॉडी को एक बैकग्राउंड दे दिया और फिर इस बॉक्स को एक डिजाइन दे दिया, राइट, कि थोड़ा सा लाइट दिखना चाहिए, विड्थ 450 पिक्सल्स होना चाहिए, पैडिंग 40 पिक्सल्स होना चाहिए, ठीक है, टेक्स्ट जो भी है वो सेंटर अलाइंड होना चाहिए. और मेरे पास एक इमेज है, अब मेरे को बस इस इमेज को यहाँ पे पोजीशन करना है. इससे होगा क्या कि whatever you see on your screen is going to be positioned in such a way that it looks like a profile or it looks like a card to me, right? एक काम करते हैं, कुछ font family भी बना देते हैं, ठीक है. कलर में जो RGBA होता है, you have you heard about the primary and the secondary colors? कि कोई भी कलर में 3 एलिमेंट्स होते हैं, R, G and B, राइट? सो सिमिलरली यहाँ पे भी वो सारे कलर्स होते हैं. अब मैं अगर इसको चेंज करूंगा, so you will see the values are changing, right? But the fourth value is not changing. Fourth value is not changing. So fourth value will not change because it is the opacity. Fourth value is the opacity. Rest of them are the values of red, green and blue. So कोई भी कलर अगर आप देखना चाह रहे हो या उसको कंप्यूटर में यूज करना चाहते हो तो उसका आपको RGB वैल्यू देना पड़ेगा, जिसके कॉम्बिनेशन से कलर बन के आता है. सो देयर इज अ शीट दैट इज आउट देयर व्हिच यू कैन रेफर. इंटरनेट पे खोजोगे आपको आराम से मिल जाएगा, प्रतीक. तो ये 3 वैल्यू आपकी RGB की हुई, और फोर्थ वैल्यू, लेट मी चेंज द नंबर ओवर हियर. Okay, I'll just change the number over here, or I'll just remove it for the matter, and I will say 1, or I will say 0.9. What do you see is happening? Do you see anything happening? So when I say color, it is the text color that I'm talking about. When I say color in anything, so what it means is box के अंदर का जितना का text है उसको देखना ध्यान से, ठीक है? आपको ज्यादा भी difference दिखेगा नहीं वैसे. If I say 1, this is called opacity. Opacity, let me make it lighter. I think that will make sense. Do you see how light it has become now, right? So how transparent you want it. So I just want it around 0.7 so that थोड़ा सा lightish feel भी रहे और पूरा transparent भी ना हो, ठीक है? So I guess I have made it clear that what this color or RGBA stands for. I'll just quickly say I want a font family so that ये थोड़ा सा funky दिखे. And this becomes like this, and it looks like something of, I don't want Arial narrow. I'll remove this. I'll keep sans serif क्योंकि मैंने एक फॉन्ट इनिशियली उठाया था, तो अभी के लिए मैं इस पे स्टिक कर रहा हूँ, ठीक है? तो मैंने बॉक्स को कर लिया. What I will do is quickly add the image. इमेज का थोड़ा स्टाइलिंग कर लेते हैं. अब इसको लगाऊंगा वापस तो ये बहुत बड़ा हो जाएगा वापस, बट मेरे को इसको थोड़ा छोटा करना है, ठीक है? Now image is overflowing. We call it overflowing because the size and everything is not handled. So what I'll do is I'll create a very small image. I'll handle the width of it. Now I'm able to specifically target it because मैंने इसका एक class specify किया था, ठीक है? तो मैं specifically इसको target कर रहा हूँ. Now, when I say, I'll make it 200 pixels, let's say, and height. ठीक है, तो ये सारी प्रॉपर्टीज है जो कि हमें हेल्प करती है टू हैंडल दीज काइंड ऑफ थिंग्स. नाउ एज यू कैन सी आई हैव गॉट अ काइंड ऑफ मच मोर व्यूएबल. इसको थोड़ा सा और बेटर कर ले. लेट्स मेक इट सर्कुलर. सो बॉर्डर रेडियस किसी ने बोला था इनिशियली, वही यूज कर लेते हैं. एंड व्हेन आई से 50%, व्हाट इट मींस इज वो गोल हो जाएगा. सो इफ आई सेव दिस, do you see this has become round, right? It has become rounded. अब एक सेकेंड के लिए मैं क्या करता हूँ आप लोग के लिए, मैं इसको फुल स्क्रीन पे दिखाता हूँ. What I'll do is I'll just make it full screen so that you can see how it looks like. Okay. Okay, let me share the screen. So you guys see, बहुत quick. Can you guys see this? So what we have done is very quickly we have created a kind of an image which is on the lines of what we had learned. तो जो मैं इनिशियली बात कर रहा था कि मेरे दिमाग में एक आइडिया है और उसको मेरे को इम्प्लीमेंट करना है, तो मैंने उसको किया. अब इसको आई कैन मेक इट बेटर. व्हाट आई विल डू इज आई विल वर्क ऑन इट. आई विल हैव अ लॉट ऑफ आइडियाज इन माय हेड. मे बी मेरे को नीचे लोगोस डालने, मे बी मेरे को यहाँ पे बटन्स डालने, उस बटन से मेरे को वो मेरे रेज्यूमे में ले जा रहा है लेट्स से, तो वहाँ पे जावास्क्रिप्ट आना शुरू होगा. अब लेट्स से कि आपको कुछ कैप्चर करना है फ्रॉम द यूजर, that how do you like my website, and that particular person enters that in the chat box or enters that in a field that you have provided, and that comes and gets loaded on some different page. So whole full stack will come into picture. So there are steps to this, and you have to understand slowly and steadily to how to solve a particular problem. Okay, so this was a very basic understanding of how it works. HTML CSS था. It looks easy, but it is the most important aspect. मेरे को ऐसा implement करना नहीं आता अगर मेरे को नहीं पता होता कि HTML और CSS काम कैसे करता है, right? All right, so I think I have talked a lot. Now, if you guys have any kind of questions, feel free to shoot the questions to me. I have talked a lot, and it's time for you to talk. So tell me if you have any kind of questions in your mind. So it is open for questions now. Tell me, how do you like the session? No, it will actually look the same in the mobile, Nirbhay, because we have used the viewport part of it. But yes, that is a very important thing to take care of whenever you're developing, कि mobile में भी दिखना चाहिए अच्छे से. It should not break in mobile screen because people are accessing a lot of stuff in mobile. A lot of you must be on mobile right now, right? Okay, suggest some tutorial for JS. I would suggest there is this guy called Quinn Larcy, and that guy is great. Maybe if you want to have a beginning, start reading about Quinn Larcy, start reading a lot of things. But what I'll do is I will share my GitHub, and you can, there is a, one second, let me share the repository that I'm talking about for JS. And there are brief topics that you will see. I'll just share my profile. You guys can take a look whenever you're free. So there are a lot of things. Maybe connect with me, maybe drop me a message on GitHub or something. So this is my profile. You can take a look. And there are topics bifurcation. There are, go into this repository called front-end topics. You will get to know about Ajax, and you'll get to know about prototypes and classes. And then there is a whole section where I have talked about intro to JS. Okay, so you can take a look at that. How to host static pages using Git. You use GitHub pages. Krishna, learn about GitHub pages. GitHub pages are used for static pages. You cannot host complete website, but I'm just going to leave a link down here. GitHub pages, the name. And GitHub pages are for the static website. It's a very easy process. Just follow the documentation that is given out there, and you will be able to have it. Okay. All right, Pratik says, I want to become a web designer, but I don't know anything about HTML or CSS. Please suggest me and guide how to start learning things to become a good web developer or web designer. So Pratik, very important aspect is you need to know HTML and CSS if you're going to be a designer. So I would suggest start learning HTML, start learning CSS, and try to clone any website. Pick up, let's say you have a very basic website, or pick up your college website and clone it using HTML and CSS. Okay, and that way it will give you a hands-on on how HTML and CSS works. To start off, go to W3 Schools. That is the site that maintains everything on HTML. These are the guys who have created HTML. So these guys will help you. Okay. All right. So I guess any more questions? You should know about it. It's not very important for the designer to know exactly how it is done or how it is linked, but knowing JS will give you a upper hand in designing part as well. You're talking about the companies, Krishna. So when it comes as a fresher, they would mostly look for a person who is able to solve data structures or who is able to solve problems using data structures. So as I said initially, try to focus on problem solving and data structures and algorithm. What you want to do or want to become can be done once you have got the, let's say you have created the interview. Okay. So I would suggest initially focus on data structures and then try to implement those things using any language which is used in backend. Let's say Node.js. So Node.js पे आप अपना solution करना शुरू करो. So जब आप company के लिए जा रहे होगे, तो you will say I'm going to solve it in JS, and they will understand, okay, this guy can work in Node.js or backend. Okay. All right. All right, so Nibha has a question. Main thing is we are learning web dev, but in our college, before placing in a good company, they are not considering web skills. Instead, they are seeing coding aptitude. Then how will we get our job even if we are having nice? So this is what I was talking about, Nibha, when I was telling this to Krishna, I guess. He had this question. Yeah, so company looks for problem solver or coding or aptitude. All these things are interlinked. They look for a person who can actually solve a problem. They do not expect a fresher to know end to end about any kind of technology. So you know a stack, implement it using that or solve a problem using your knowledge. That way you will be able to portray yourself as a person who can solve problem using a specific technology, and that technology might be used in the company. So exactly. So full stack developer means you have to do it all. But I have given you an algorithm. How to do it? Pick up data structures, solve aptitude. Aptitude is a very different aspect. Use coding, pick up one language which is pretty popular right now, solve your data structures and algorithms using those language, and that way you can stick to what you want as a web developer, and then you can get into a company and request or go ahead and say I'm going to work for front end and back end. Okay. SEO. SEO is search engine optimization. This is very different. Uh, as a coder, you might implement some code, but it comes on a very business requirement. तो अगर मैं इसको बहुत सिंपल टर्म्स में बोलूँ, एसईओ का मतलब होता है कि आपने गूगल सर्च किया, लेट्स से साइफर स्कूल्स, और साइफर स्कूल सबसे ऊपर आ रहा है, या आपने सर्च किया ऑनलाइन ऑनलाइन एडटेक इंडस्ट्री और एडटेक कंपनी, साइफर स्कूल सबसे ऊपर आ रहा है, तो क्या हो रहा है कि सर्च इंजन ऑप्टिमाइज है हमारा. इसका मतलब है कि हमने जो इम्प्लीमेंटेशन किया है उससे जो गूगल का क्रॉलर है या सर्च इंजन है, that is able to get the website quickly because you have written a code which tells the crawler that okay, show me instead of some other. And there is a lot of things on search engine optimization, and it is more on a field of digital marketing. अगर आप curious हो तो डिजिटल मार्केटिंग में एसईओ काफी यूज होता है, डेवलपमेंट में बस आप डेवलप करते हैं. ओके गाइस, सो आई थिंक yeah, you can use it anyway, like it's a logic, it's an algorithm. आप कोई भी चीजें यूज कर लो. It is basically how what you want to show and what are the keywords that you use, वो अलग strategy होती है. Language wise HTML सारे web pages में होता है, तो that is always there in the meta tags, correct, Nirbhay? And then there are encodes as well that we implement, but that is a very different field. All right, I think we have overshot the time. I will hand it over to Vani. I guess you guys learned a lot today, got to know about a lot of things. So it's over to you, Vani, and thank you guys. It was nice interacting with you. I'm going to share. I'm going to give Vani my stage. Let me search where she is on the list. All right. I will make her the host. All right.
So, hello everyone, and a special thanks to you, Palash sir, for being so generous and providing us with so much of information. It also a special thanks to all the participants out here who are investing a lot of their time, who were there in the whole week, and who were here to learn something new. Cipher Schools hope that we were able to put something to your some value to your knowledge. Nirbhay, I'm just up to that. This was the last episode or the webinar for Cipher Week, but you can stay tuned, stay updated on our social handles for what is coming next. And you can surely, get all the updates about the live free webinars that we conduct, or maybe the upcoming batches that we have in store for you guys.